A penny or cent is 1/100th of a dollar, which means 100 cents or pennies make a dollar. In the French-speaking parts of Canada, the coin is sometimes called a black cent or black penny. As we trace the most valuable Canadian penny, we'll look at the history of these coins and their commercial significance to the nation's economy. Most valuable Canadian penny. 1. 1939, Canadian center error. Let's start with the basics. Just like the US, Canada had a native pre-colonial population. The tribes are known as the First Nations, and many retain their indigenous languages. Canada had colonial powers from both the UK and France, so these are their two official languages. Year: 1939. Monarch: George VI. Grade: none. Value: $399. In Quebec, most people speak Québécois French, aka Canadian French. This province has the second largest population in Canada, and they refer to Canadian pennies as so. Montreal is the biggest city in Quebec, named after its three-peaked mountain, the famous Mt. Royal. 2. 1981, Canadian circulated 1 center/penny Elizabeth II coin /lot A28. Canada considers itself part of the Commonwealth. These are 50 or so countries that were mostly colonized by the UK, and it's a voluntary association of nations. Many Commonwealth states have reigning British monarchs on their earliest coins, including the Canadian penny. Year: 1981. Monarch: Elizabeth II. Grade: none. Value: $350. In those early days, Canada was a monarchy, but instead of having its own local kings and queens, they answered to the royal family in Britain. So Canadian pennies from various eras featured Queen Victoria, King George V and VI, King Edward VII, and Queen Elizabeth II. 3. NGC MS64 RB 1935, Canadian Center, richly toned, red-brown specimen. These coins had the monarch on the obverse and some variant of a maple leaf on the reverse. They were coined from 1858 to 2012, and their metal composition changed over the centuries. The oldest versions were bronze, but today's coins contain steel. Year: 1935. Monarch: George V. Grade: MS64 RB. Value: $131.50. The bulk of the coin is made of steel, and alloy of iron and carbon. The steel portion of the coin accounts for 94% of its mass, while 1.5% is nickel with an outer coating of copper plating for the final 4.5%. The initial coins were an inch in diameter and weighed 4.54 g. 4. Canadian circulated small since 1920 in Whitman album. 88 pennies #MFT2295. Let's talk a little more about the metal composition of Canadian pennies. In their earliest form, the coins were 95% copper, 4% tin, and 1% zinc, which is a popular bronze ratio that's sometimes called French bronze. Later, the mix became 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc. Year: mixed. Monarch: mixed. Grade: mixed. Value: $138.01. During the post-war years, Canadian pennies were 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc, so they had a brassier feel. Then, in the late 1970s, the Canadian penny ratio got tin-heavy again with 98% copper, 1.75% tin, and 0.25% zinc. This continued until the mid-90s, around 1996. 5. Canadian small cent collection includes 1922/23/24/25 1920 to 197. The varied metal composition meant Canadian coins from different generations had diverse weights, even though their diameter stayed the same after 1920. They were 19.05 millimeters or 3/4 inch. The lightest zinc coins were minted from 1997 to 1999. 98.4% zinc with 1.4% copper plating. Year: 1920 to 1972. Monarch: mixed. Grade: mixed. Value: $124.22. These coins only weighed 2.25 g since they were mostly zinc with a thin copper coat on the outside. The year 2000 introduced contemporary Canadian pennies with 94% steel, 1.5% nickel, and 4.5% copper plating. These coins weighed 2.35 g and were phased out after 2012. 6. Canadian Large Penny Collection 1858 to 1920 Complete All Years Nice Set. The early 1-inch coins seem large by modern standards. But since they were made of base metals rather than precious metals, they weren't as hefty. The public was used to dense coins from America, Britain, and Spain, so they didn't much like these new lightweight Canadian coins. Year: 1858 to 1920. Monarch, mixed. Grade: mixed. Value: $166.27. Since the citizens largely rejected these original coins, the Canadian Mint came up with an alternative to please the public in 1876. The coins had Queen Victoria on the obverse and a ring of maple leaves on the reverse. The coins were also heavier, at 5.67 g or 1/5 of an ounce. 7. Canada Small Penny Collection 1920-2012 Key Dates Canadian. In 1867, Queen Victoria was the Queen of the United Kingdom aka Ireland and Great Britain. For reference, Great Britain equals Scotland, England, and Wales, so adding Ireland makes it the UK. Meanwhile, Canada had 4 recognized provinces that formed the Dominion of Canada. Year: 1920 to 2012. Monarch, mixed. Grade: mixed. Value: $169.17. These provinces were formalized into a federation via the Confederation on July 1, 1867. The provinces were Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, all under Queen Victoria. After this, Canadian pennies used the equivalent British half pennies as their base planchets. 8. 1969 Canadian penny as pictured. If you're unfamiliar, a planchet is the blank metal disc that gets stamped to become a coin. The British halfpennies had the same size, metal composition, and melt value as Canadian pennies, so they made sense as a base. Later, coins got smaller to match American pennies. Year: 1969. Monarch, Elizabeth II. Grade: none. Value: $150. The large earlier Canadian pennies had crown monarchs and shared the reverse, which was a circle of maple leaves. The smaller coins featured the royals without their formal crowns and ditched the ring of leaves as well. 9. Lot of 15 uncirculated rolls of 1985 Canadian pennies. Starting in 1920, Canadian pennies shrunk to 19.05 millimeters in diameter, and as we mentioned, featured monarchs that were not wearing their official headgear. Queen Elizabeth II made her Canadian penny debut in 1953 and stayed until 2012 when penny production stopped. Year: 1985. Monarch, Elizabeth II. Grade: uncirculated. Value: $214.04. These Queen Elizabeth II coins were redesigned 3 times. Dora de Petrie Hunt did the 1990 update. She was a Canadian of Hungarian descent and was the first Canadian citizen to sculpt the Queen on a coin. Previous portraits had been created by coin experts from the UK. 10. Collection of Canadian 1-cent coins. All the Canadian pennies featuring Queen Elizabeth II have a pair of maple leaves on the reverse. This emblem was designed by George Edward Kruger Gray in 1937. He went by G.E. and his design had denticles framing both sides of the coin, with the leaves in the middle. Year: mixed. Monarch, mixed. Grade: mixed. Value: $917.33. The top of the coin had the legend 1 cent with Canada stamped at the bottom. On one side of the maple leaves, you'll find the year of mintage, and on the other side of the leaves, you'll find the designer's initials, K.G. The 2 leaves rise from a single branch in the coin's center. 11. 1967 Canada Penny Dove 1 cent copper Canadian coin. In 1967, a special penny was minted to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of Canadian Confederation. This coin had Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse and a rock pigeon on the reverse. The easily recognizable bird is sometimes called a rock dove or a common pigeon. Year: 1967. Monarch: Queen Elizabeth II. Grade: none. Value: $100. It's the type of pigeon you'll see on city streets with its gray body and flashes of aqua, blue, green, and purple on its iridescent neck. On the coin, the bird has its wings outstretched while the front of the coin features a young Queen Elizabeth II wearing her royal tiara. 12. 2006, Canadian 1 center graded Mississippi 64 no logo / no piece / magnetic / red rare. Apart from the distinctive reverse and the crown, you can identify Centennial pennies because they have 2 years on the reverse, 1867 to 1967. This characteristic distinguishes Canadian pennies from American ones, which have the year of mintage on the front instead. Year: 2006. Monarch: Elizabeth II. Grade: MS64. Value: $152.89. But let's talk about another British monarch, King Edward VIII. He was only king for a year before stepping down to marry his beloved, Wallis Simpson. She was an American and a divorcee, so in order to wed her, he abdicated his birthright and throne.